wars and the diet discussion. We've kind of already started the diet discussion a little bit in the chat box.
Yeah, thank you. So we did form a learning circle and started to look at the Pemmican Wars. And I had heard of the Pemmican Wars, but really didn't have a clear understanding of why it would be called a war. And so the group started to look for books, and of course we found Pemmican Man, and in Bill's book it does talk about the Seven Oaks incident. And I think David had said, depending upon which view you're taking, you might call it a massacre, or you might call it an incident, a happening. And talking about the outcome, or discovering the outcome of and how the Pemmican War, the Seven Oaks incident, affected the lives of Marguerite and John, Dr. John, and how it really emotionally affected the people that lived along the border in Fort William area to Montreal and up into the Red River Valley. That this level of sorrow, coupled with the economic breakdown that was happening because of the diminishing fur trade, and the deep effect that the Pemmican Proclamation had on the Métis in the Red River Valley really began to paint, for me at least, an embodiment of the Pemmican War and how it felt to be involved and to be involved in the fur trade, and how to be living in that time. And so just briefly, where I started to think about in terms of the Pemmican War and the the merger, which we'll get to in detail here. But the Métis being greatly affected by the outcome and the aftermath. What happened next for the Métis after the Pemmican War? So if you think about the after effects of any war, people have to recover. So the Métis realized that their lifestyle of selling pemmican to the Northwest Company was over. And so what appears to have happened is that they began to form trade routes from the Red River Valley to St. Paul. And I'm not entirely sure what they exported to St. Paul. I'd like to probably form another learning circle in 2022 to talk about that. But that, you might be familiar with the term the ox cart trails, or the Red River Road. They formed corporately I guess, independent traders on contract into an intention of bringing their exported products from the Red River Valley to St. Paul and then selling them in St. Paul, which then brought the products down to St. Louis and to New Orleans. But when they got to St. Louis, they went up the Missouri River and the Ohio River. So the Métis ran the Red River Road trade system from about 1820. And they really kind of saw the end of their world coming, their economic world, until about 1870, when the railroads were built from St. Paul up to Fargo. And so 50 years of active trading went on in the aftermath of the Pemmican Wars. The other thing that appears to me, and there may be many, many other influences that consolidated the Métis as a culture, that has quite an active and current influence in Canada today, is also of interest. And questions that in my mind that I would like to explore is, how did the Pemmican War and the further development of the Métis as a political entity move toward the Riel Rebellion and the formation of the province of Manitoba. So questions like that. The other learning circle, of course, the one that is even more interesting, is we decided to explore the Voyageur diet and this idea of pemmican. And of course, pemmican has the calorie content from fat, and it has the protein from pounded meat that was pounded, dried first, sun-dried, and then pounded into a powder, and then consolidated into transportable units or blocks by mixing it with warmed fat or tallow extracted from the bones of animals. And then if there were other additives that were in surplus, could be wild rice, it could be berries. I'm sure there were a lot of other interesting things to be found in pemmican, like animal hair, maybe a lot of grit. We haven't actually acquired pemmican, but we would like to do that. The other thing that, I do want to relate a story. This summer I met a gentleman who was on a portage just on the east end of Mountain Lake, and he had paddled all the way from Edmonton. It's left Edmonton at the end of May, and my wife and I met him on the 15th of August, and that he had supplied himself with pemmican as he passed through communities, and was ending at Thunder Bay and was down to 2 pounds of pemmican. And I see Carl's putting in some of the additives that were common. Anyway, so pemmican is still out there. The other thing that that the Voyageur community ran on were peas, dried peas. And what's interesting about that to me is that the peas were not the green peas that we know and love in our green pea soup. They were yellow peas. And if you go up to the Red River Valley and you go in a cafe and you order a bowl of pea soup, it won't be green. It will be yellow. So I tried to find a seed source. You know, where can I buy yellow pea seeds so I can plant them in my garden? And I've not had an answer. And I thought, well, maybe these are just green peas that are extended in their life and they've turned yellow. And that may be the case, but of course, this summer I grew some peas and I tried to see if I could make that happen. I turn these green peas into yellow peas. No luck. But I can go to the local grocery store and I can buy a bag of yellow peas. And in fact, I prefer the yellow peas to the green peas. And the other thing that somebody mentioned, pork, salt pork was part of the diet, but that was the pork eaters' fat and protein source. You know, people that were coming from Montreal were supplied with that. The other thing that I found is that people heading west, intending to come east, would often plant turnips. As you know, turnip seeds are very small. They're transportable. They don't need a whole lot of tending, and they would intend to pick the turnips on the way home. I think Kelsey emailed you a list of rations issued at York Factory, and I found that list in this document, which is a magazine form, the Museum of the Fur Trade Quarterly, that was published. This particular one is from winter of 2001, and it's a slim volume, and it has the rations that were being issued at York Factory, and they do include flour, barley, and oatmeal, and pork and pemmican, but they also include rabbits and partridges and fish. And it's a very interesting article. They write about the source material.